was I saying? So I was saying that with Yara, so she has cancer, and I've been, kind of racking my brain for the last year on how to combat like what's going on with her integratively, right, with integrative medicine. And she was given 3 weeks to live, like I was telling you last year, and they sent her home, and they just said, like, call us when you need euthanasia. And I'm just kind of stubborn, and I'm just like, okay, they could say, like I was thinking, they could say it's very likely that this is going to happen, right? But there may be some things you can do to prolong her life or whatever, but they don't even say anything like that. They don't acknowledge that right now in the veterinary medicine that I've been accustomed to meeting. So since I've been doing all of this, right, she's gotten some integrative medicine stuff. She's lived another year, and she's gotten some test results that were bad, like I was saying, and like her cancer is still progressing, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. So I know cancer doesn't live in an alkaline environment. I know all of these things, and we're trying to see like what is the difference between animals and humans, right? Like, so how does a cancer diet affect a dog compared to a human, and then what factors do how you think in like holistically interfere with the sickness, right? Like with the disease, whatever you want to call it. And with Yara, it's more like she doesn't have the awareness for me to talk to her and say like, hey, like, how do you feel today? I want you to think positive. I want you to do all these things. There's all these studies, obviously, on how your thinking affects your sickness. So what I've found out from some studies in the last week or two on the placebo effect and on how conscious awareness affects animals, because they don't have the type of conscious awareness that we do, basically how we feel is a big influence over them.
Yeah, absolutely. So like studies have shown that when animals, for example, are behaving in ways that are destructive, right? Like they're destroying things, they're nipping at other people. That famous dog psychologist, Carlos, what's his name? Is it Carlos? No. He's a very famous dog trainer. But he's like a dog psychologist. I'll think of his name in a second. But anyway, what he's found is that he'll take these dogs and he'll train them, and they'll respond with him to what he's training them to do. But he puts them with other animals that are happy and well adjusted and can regulate themselves, and the dog can't do it. He gives them back to the family, and the dog goes back to acting exactly how they were acting before. And so it's exactly like humans, right? Functionality, how we function, has everything to do with our temperament, which we can't change. It's who we are. We can learn to regulate ourselves, right, based on our temperament, but we can't change our temperament. But it's based on temperament and environment, right? So the dog's environment, they pick up on our energy and how we feel, and that is how dogs react. And also the studies with water, where we know that our bodies are majority water. And when the Japanese doctor that did these studies, when you talk to water and you tell it you're stupid, you're a piece of shit, the molecules in the water shrivel up and react to those words, because words are energy. And that energy, the dog might not understand what the word means, but the dogs understand the energy, and their bodies pick up on energy. That's why dogs smell your ear, because they're looking for your scent to know how you feel and respond to you. So I do believe that talking to your animal, when we've put our dogs that we've had to put to sleep, the vet will tell you, like, be with them, comfort them, love them, because they feel that and they respond to that. And all beings respond to energy. I mean, that's what we are, right? Everything is energy.
Right. And thoughts are energy, like you said. Thoughts, even they can't see them, right? Just like I tell people that thoughts are similar to radio waves, and they affect how you think and feel, and other people's thoughts affect how you think and feel. And you're not always conscious of all of the information that you're absorbing all day long.
Absolutely.
And animals are the same way, right? Except they just don't have like the consciousness to be able to say, I accept this thought and I don't accept this thought, or I want to change this. They kind of just go with the flow of what's going on with you. Because Yara is like, I mean, she's such a happy dog, and she really has a good temperament, good personality, and yeah, I mean, like I said, Cornell University. So I email a lot of different clinical trials and different doctors, and I tell them what's going on with her and like, how she's been and what the situation is. And, I mean, obviously it's just so much time it takes to do all this research, but they called me back and they said, they get hundreds of emails, and they were like, I titled it Hope for Yara, the Miracle Husky, right? And I told them what was going on.
Aw.
I know. And they called me back and they said, I talked to a vet tech. The vet had reviewed my case. I sent them x-rays and everything. And, I review all of her x-rays. And they sent they called me back and they were like, what are you giving Yara? Right. And I talked to them about the cancer diet. And this lady spent 45 minutes on the phone with me. And what's amazing is the doctor that she has, they don't even like call me back. Like they literally send me the x-rays in an email with no response. They don't even say like, hey, we'd like to schedule an appointment. And this is like, I pay these people like a lot of money to like call me and talk to me and go over x-rays and do all these things. And my best friend takes her, they're in Maine. We drive an hour and a half to go to an appointment because the only holistic veterinary doctor in our area that will take her. And so she's been going there for a year, but they like don't call you back. They don't respond very well. And it's just crazy, like that the healthcare system said, and I mean, they make a good amount of money, and I understand they're very busy, but there are situations where it warrants giving someone a phone call or just talking to them, and they don't. So this lady called me back, and she says, what you're doing with Yara, she says, could help a lot of animals. And she gave me her name and information, and she says, I wish that you would consider when she does pass away, donating her body to holistic and integrative medicine veterinary services so they can find out like how the effects of what you're doing are changing her life, because there are dogs with stage 4 cancer that are suffering and have to be put to sleep. And this dog doesn't even know she's sick, right? Like you would meet her.
So what are you doing that is different with her diet?
Okay, so there's a lot, right? There's a lot. So the first thing we do is, as we know, like cancer does not really survive in an alkaline environment. So we make her diet alkaline based. The second thing is a cancer diet will be something that is holistic, right? So we don't want any processed food, any unnecessary carbohydrates, snacks, treats, any of those things. And it sounds like really terrible, but it's actually really good. She loves it. She eats all of her food. We give her Farmer's Dog for the food because it includes vitamins and whole foods and grains. So we give her a little bit of that. She always has a vegetable, like a green, like chard and carrots and vegetables. And then she has a protein on the side, like a small extra protein, like boiled chicken or steak. Everything she has is organic, is hormone free. There's salt. We do add sometimes, like, so she's like under 3 grams, right? Like, so there's a lot of details, but basically, like, she can need some flavor, so we can like marinate it in chicken broth or something, right? Like, so that she'll eat it. But she really likes it. Something called the Joanna Budwig diet, which is for people and dogs. It is a whole thing to talk about, but we give her a combination of flax and cottage cheese mixed together. So when you combine those two, Joanna Budwig was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. No, can't even talk today. Nominated for the Nobel Prize 4 to 5 times in her lifetime for saving people on their deathbed. So she would go into hospitals. I think it was during the early 1900s. She would go into hospitals and she would start feeding people this diet and giving them this stuff and like just cutting off everything that they were getting. And people were starting to get better. And so people started asking questions, right? Like what's it doing? Like, does she have some kind of medicine? And so by no means am I saying there's a cure for cancer and all of that. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I'm a medical doctor. I'm saying that there are things out there that nobody understands, right? Like, and there are things out there that we can evaluate more and see if it helps. And whatever this woman was doing, she was saving people and they were getting better.
Well, we also know that diet and hydration are 2 of the most important things for your body's overall well-being, right? And that over time, the type of diet that you have and how hydrated you are is going to equal to a huge, huge part of how you feel.
Right, 100%. Like I drink green tea every day. It has something called EGCG in it, and that really is good if you have any kind of like hormone problems or any kind of women's issues. There's so many different things. But Yara takes IP6. She's on IP6 is inositol, which is an immune system booster. So they're just learning about some of these things now in Eastern medicine. Western medicine. They're just learning some of these things now, and they're talking about immunology and all of this stuff. This is kind of stuff that's been in Western medicine for hundreds of years. So she takes IP6, anyways. That helps with your immune system. She does.
How do you give her that? Like, how do you give her the?
So it's a capsule. They also have like an isotonic version that you can put in water and mix and drink. But it's going to be too much for her, so she takes that. She takes it in a capsule. Okay. She takes something called apocaps, and that causes something apoptosis. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but that is something that attacks cancer cells. Yeah, it attacks cancer cells. And so, depending on the type of cancer and how far along, and a whole bunch of other variables that we can get into, it's good to try to attack some of the cells and slow them down. So she takes that twice a day. She takes omega-3s. She takes probably 3 to 4 times the regular dose of omega-3s. Those are known, obviously, to. So inflammation in your body, right? This basically all disease is inflammation in your body. And so cancer is a type of inflammation. And omega-3s lower inflammation in your body. And they've been shown in high doses to have effects on tumors and cancer cells, things like that. And some of the things that we're talking about would be good. We'll put some links or something so people can see where some of this information comes from.
Yeah.
But that's been shown. She takes that 3 times a day. She takes a lot of stuff. She takes Ethioc-T. Ethioc-T is for humans and animals, and it's also been shown to have good results with cancer patients, and also with appetite and all of the symptoms that come along with having cancer. So she takes that twice a day. she takes a lot of stuff, and honestly, like, she's fine. She takes curcumin, which is the main ingredient in turmeric, and inflammation.
The other thing I think that people don't realize, because I know, like, we changed our dog's diet when one of our dogs was also about to pass and having a lot of hip problems. My husband did a lot of research on what animals are supposed to eat, and a lot of the stuff that's in dog food is not what animals are supposed to eat. So, like, their own food oftentimes is what makes them sick or shortens their lifespan. And when we switched our dogs to a raw diet and just vegetables and things like that, and raw meat, that dog lived a lot longer than he should have. And our dogs don't shed, our dogs don't smell, our dog's teeth, like, the vet has his new vets, when he's teaching them, come in and look at our dog's teeth, because they don't have plaque, they don't have anything that these other dogs that are eating grains and additives and preservatives and things. Yeah. It's just like in human food, right? A lot of the food industry is actually hurting and poisoning us. It's not healthy. Even if the bag says healthy, that doesn't mean that what's in it is what we're supposed to have in our bodies, or that our bodies can recognize that.
And that's a great point, right? Because one of the main things that, like, this whole conversation is to ask the right questions, right? So when you're in the store and you're shopping for your food or your dog's food, you say, like, what is healthy? Because something says it's healthy, like cheese says gluten-free, right? And it's like, well, I mean, that's like gluten is wheat, right? Like, why would that, like, what's going on there, right? Like, do people really understand? And the thing is, like, the food industry knows that, like, people think, right, oh, healthy or not healthy, but when you read the ingredients and you see that there's corn syrup in it or that there's added sugar in it, that's not healthy, right? But, like, people don't know because they're just trusting the labels a lot of the time, thinking that this is right. And it's like, I'm not saying don't trust the labels. I'm saying just ask yourself the right questions. Look at the labels. Think to yourself, is this something that's good for my body? Is this something that's good for my animal's body?
Well, you have to do your own research. And understand what ingredients are. I don't think that most people understand what ingredients are. Like, when we started looking at our dog food and the ingredients in it, we realized that, like, oftentimes those things give the dog diabetes.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes me worked up when I start thinking about, even when I go to the supermarket or I mean, it's just crazy. Like, I mean, when you go to the hospital, go in the hospital. I had my appendix out like 4 or 5 years ago, and I didn't want any drugs. I don't want any drugs. I want this, that. And they're like, oh, are you hungry? Here's cereal, and here's like Jello. And I'm like, oh my god, I don't want any of that. Like, it's like
sugar, more
sugar water, and a bunch of grain, right? Like, oh my god, it's like you guys have apples or broccoli or whatever. Like, it's like,
which is that sugar is what creates the optimum environment for cancer. Like that's what changes the pH in your body. That's what creates the best environment for any disease to grow in your body.
Yeah, I mean, sickness, inflammation, and it's like, nobody's perfect. So I always say, like, yeah, you're not going to get in this day and age, maybe, right? But it's really hard to get your diet perfect. And I think today, society, it's funny because I think, this is just my personal opinion, but there's probably studies on it that women have it a lot harder today because of, when I grew up, there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't all of this propaganda, there wasn't all of, these, this is what you should look like, this is what you should be like. And it's like, I should be like really fit and really skinny and really beautiful until I'm 80, but I should eat really fattening food with carbs, not exercise, right? And it's like, oh my god, like you're setting it up here, right, for the healthcare industry to have a lot more patients. And it's like, this is crazy. And it does make me, it's like when I talk to my nieces and nephews and they're like, and like my niece is 9 and they're like, like looking at the Facebook and the different, all the filters and all the things. And it's like, this is not what people look like, right? This isn't real, right? And it's like for guys, when they grow up, what are the guys going to think that they should look like, right? Like, you should look like the people that you see on the social media with all of those filters. Like, that's not real people, and it distorts your perception and your point of view of what's okay. Mm-hmm. And this stuff is just like, I don't know, it's a lot. So, hopefully the things that we talk about can help people to ask the right questions, right? Like, what do I, even guys, like they say themselves, like, what do I want to look at? What do I want to experience? All of that, because it's just clouding your mind with all of this propaganda, and it's everywhere. And everywhere you look, food, health industry, finance, relationships, right? It's everywhere. And you have to really decide to take your life into your own hands and get control of your brain.
It's all advertising. It's marketing. It's they want to sell you something. They're not trying to educate you. They're not trying to inform you. They're not looking out for your health. They're looking out for the bottom line of that company's, pocketbook. And so it is super important to be a critical thinker and to look at all of the information and to know why and how companies are targeting their advertisement towards you. Because I think you're right. That's with everything. And all companies try to tell you that you should be doing something and that you need their product. So they're going to try to make it attractive.
And that's becoming more and more hidden, right? Like, so in the past, I think like years ago, Camel cigarettes had like people smoking with holding their kids and just weird stuff, right? Like, it's like you would never see that today. But it's like now it's not as brazen as that, right? It's more hidden. So you have to, like, because they keep getting smarter and smarter how they're advertising this to you. So you're not even really realizing it. Like, if you look at a sign and it's in blue instead of orange, your brain is automatically going to be more susceptible to read the information on that sign just because of the color. And it's like, who knows what's on the sign, right? Like, or what you're looking at. And it's like, that's just one aspect, when you start taking in, like you said, healing and motivation and all of these things, like it's very rare that you're going to be able to look at anything and not be influenced in some way, right? Like, unless you're like conscious all day, and we're not Gandhi, so we have to like really be careful on what's going on.
Yeah, but that's what they do. I mean, it's an art, right? The art of seduction is what good sales are, is like they seduce you into what they need you to be thinking about and get into your subconscious and then get you to act. And then you're like, what just happened? Like, it reminds me of that scene in Alice in Wonderland with the cat's eyes that they start to hypnotize. That's what marketing, the good marketing and advertising does, right? And they use psychology, they use manipulation, they pull you in, right? And then they have you exactly where they want you. And good for them. That's their job. But your job is to not allow yourself to get pulled in unless you want to, right? Like we all have things that we enjoy getting pulled into and our hobbies and things like that. But for your health, for your animals' health, for your family's health, it in my opinion, it more often than not, you're not getting the full amount of information that you need.
Yep, that's right. And I think it gets harder and harder to learn how to ask the right questions. And so teaching people to say like, okay, what should I be asking myself? Because even critical thinking, you can be a critical thinker and learn how to be a better critical thinker, learn how to ask yourself the right questions, learn how to see what you're really looking at or what you're looking for. And your brain actually like wants to help you, right? So your brain wants you to be right because that's just what it does. Like it's been since you're in caveman days, it protects you. So when you say to yourself, I want to lose weight, or whatever you say to yourself, and you say it to yourself with emotion and feeling and thoughts. Your brain is going to look for those things. It's going to pick them out. So when you're walking, like the reticular activating system, like the RSA, you say to yourself, I want to be this type of person, right? When I wanted to win the national championship in pool, I said, I want to be a champion, right? I wasn't a champion. I was terrible, but somehow by continuing to ask myself the right questions, my brain was able to pick out and look at the things that were going to help me get on that path as long as I keep asking myself those questions.
Right.
And I think teaching people how to do that, and that's what you do, is a great thing.
Yeah. The hard part about that is that it takes practice, and unless you want to do it for whatever reason, to get healthy or to actually accomplish your goal, it's going to be a process that you have to learn to implement into your life. To like my friend said yesterday, she said about the election. She goes, everybody just needs to pause, like just pause, right? Like stop being reactive. And I like that a lot because most of us are so reactive in our life. We forget that pausing is just as important as reacting, right? Because in that pause, you can ask the right questions, you can understand, you can get a better idea of what's actually going on. That's why in sales, they never want you to leave, right? They never want you to leave because if you get up from that table, they lost you because it's that
Yeah.
pause that allows you to maybe veer into a different path or get different information that's going to help you see things differently.
Right.
I like your dog in the window. It's so cute. He's looking up, or she's looking out the window.
Yeah. And when I got her, we got her from a rescue, and she was pretty aggressive. She was food aggressive, and she was scared. And like you were talking about earlier, she would kind of snarl a little bit, and she wouldn't like bite anybody, but she definitely was like on the defense and was like really worried someone's gonna take her food and all this other stuff. Since she's been here, this is what we've been getting. I mean, I think
So see, that's what we were talking about before. Talking makes a difference to your dogs. Like they feel your energy. They feel the vibe of what's going on. They start to respond to their environment.
I mean, earlier conversations with you, we wouldn't be able to do this because the dog was
barking. Yeah, no, she's super calm.
Running, eating stuff. Yeah, so she's doing a lot better. She still barks a little, but definitely an improvement through influence, right? And I try to make a conscious effort when I talk to her to relay love and safety. And if I think about those things and feel those things when I communicate, it comes through, right? Because you don't have a choice. Like if you, whatever you think and feel, coming out. And you're
absolutely. Not only whatever you think is feel is coming out, but people are going to pick up on it. Like
whether
people
know it or not.
Oh, absolutely. Like so much people pick up. I've always been surprised when I'm in situations where, I'm just there. I'm not talking, I'm not engaging with people, and people will make comments about like, "Oh, I feel so comfortable around you." I'm like, I didn't even speak to you. Like, I didn't even say anything. Because oftentimes we forget that all of us are like emitting this frequency that other people can pick up on,
Yeah, and I mean, it's measurable. If you have the right tools, you can literally show people your heart energy comes out 6 feet from your body. And like, what you think, it's like because people think we're not really separate, right? Like it looks like we're not connected, but everything in the world, like through quantum physics, is connected. And so, I mean, these are all things that are relative to people's everyday life. Like they're like, oh, I would never use that. Like, well, I don't know anything about math or quantum physics. And I'm like, well, that's fine, but like you should at least know, right? Like what is influence? Because most people want control over their life, and they think I'm not interested in I hate science. I'm interested in that stuff. It's like, well, you don't have to be, but I know you're interested in your own life, right? You're interested in how you feel and what you think and what you eat, right? And like how you talk to your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, right? Like you're interested in those things. And those things are directly related to all of this other stuff, right? And if you start asking yourself the right question, then you start being able to develop a self-awareness where you have more. You'll never have complete control, right? Because you're always going to have a subconscious mind and you're always going to be able to just go through your day, but you'll have a lot of control over the direction of where you're going, and your brain will help you once you start to direct it in the right way.
Yeah, I try to tell my psychology students that you should always be asking at all the time in your life, but like what science teaches us. And I'm going into this because you said not everybody likes science. And immediately my heart went, "Aw, what?"
I know. I wish they did.
Like, to me, science is life. Like if you want to understand your life, understand science, right? Understand physics, understand psychology, biology. But I would tell my students that you always, always, always have to be asking who, what, when, where, and how. And when my kids were little, it's probably still around, or it might not be because my kids are not that little anymore. But there was this show, and it was this British show, and it was these little animals, a cartoon that were investigators. So they had this song that was like, who, what, when, where, how? Who, what, when, where, how? And I always use that song because those are really important questions, right? And when we train ourselves to constantly be asking questions, we keep our curiosity very much sparked up. And Eastern philosophy tells us that the moment we stop being curious, we start to die. I had this discussion with my students yesterday about death. And I asked them, I said, should we be investing all this money as a human society on fighting aging, right? This anti-aging industry, different from what we just discussed about health, right? So one thing is to have a functional body where you don't hurt, where you're supple and can move and engage in life. And another thing is to fight the visible physical, vanity signs of aging. Should we be spending so much money on telling, and it's more geared towards women than not, right? Like you shouldn't have wrinkles. You shouldn't have gray hair. Your boobs and butt shouldn't sag. And in my opinion, that is more damaging than bringing us to more of a place of acceptance or love for ourselves.
100%. And I think that there needs to be a bigger movement on that. Like, I like when I see things that say, be positive, body positive and all this. And I think there's a balance, right? Like between saying, yes, it is good to take care of yourself. Yes, you don't want to look like, honestly, like if you're 80 and you can look good at 80, great. But do you want to spend years of your life, like, right, doing something just to get rid of one wrinkle? Like, probably not. So there's a balance, right? Like you want to look healthy and feel healthy for yourself. And, it's the same because you also want your partner to look healthy. I mean, you don't want to say like, oh, well, you're overweight, but you're healthy. So it's okay that you're 4 pounds. Like that's just, because there's a balance, right? Like you don't want that person to be getting liposuction and going like crazy, but you also want that person to choose better health choices, so that they're not going to be getting diabetes or they're not going to be so overweight that they can't get out of the house, right? So there's all this balance. And so I don't tell people like, don't let yourself go because that's not good either. But at the same time, be really aware of the reasons and choices and why you're making these things, right? Because if you're doing it because you think that you're going to be hot forever, it's not going to happen, right? Like you can say, I look good for 80. Nobody can say you're 80 and you're really hot, right? Like when my mom's 80, I say, eat what you want, right? Eat ice cream. As long as you're healthy, you want to eat ice cream or you want to like do something, go ahead, right? Like when I'm 90, I'm going to eat ice cream, right? And they're going to say, well, your cholesterol is 20 points higher. I'm like, really? So, okay, I don't care, right? Like, I'm 90 years old. I'm going to eat the ice cream. I've been healthy my whole life, whatever, right? Like, now if they're like, if you eat ice cream, you're going to drop benchmark because your cholesterol's 380, a little bit different. So, I mean,
Well, but I've also seen, when I was working in the hospital, I saw cases where people's mindset and their attitude
yeah,
had more of an effect on their ability to heal or prevent, their disease from progressing than any medication or any diet. I had a teacher in grad school that said, you can have the most organic, healthy diet, go to the sauna, you know, shake your body, do your call, like you could do all the things and
right,
be a miserable person that's always in pain, or you
right,
can eat cat food and be the most lively, jovial, happy person and be a
right,
lot healthier, right? So I think it's all interconnected and it's all interrelated. And that's, I feel like, where in the American system, that's where we're missing the mark. We're missing the mark because people don't understand that you can be doing all the things, right? And just always be doing the things and checking it off the list. But if you are not in tune with yourself, if you're not engaging socially with others in a positive way, if you're not asking questions about how do I consistently push myself to new things, to growth, to expansion, to be uncomfortable, and you stop being curious, then you really, your well-being is going to be impacted. You can have all the things on paper that say, oh my god, this person is amazing, they're super accomplished, they're doing great in life, but then we wouldn't see so much burnout, then we wouldn't see so many people flipping out, then we wouldn't see so much hate and polarization. And but that's all within people, right? These are all just symptoms of what's happening within people.
yep, I agree, and I think there's so much to it, like you said. Also, like, how were you brought up, right? Like, what do you believe was good or bad, or what kind of food did you eat? What were you taught that was part of your diet, and all of these things are factors.
And some people are told, like, back to your dog situation, I've heard often in families where people will say, oh, we just die young in this family, you know? Um, or like my mom's family, the opposite. My great great grandma. So I've gotten to meet four of my great great grandparents, which is amazing. I'm so glad I did. But on my mom's side of the family, my great great grandma, I remember this my whole life. She always talked about, oh, in my family, we lived to be 100, and we lived to be 100, and she lived to be like 96, I think, or 97. And literally, I saw her be a super vital. She was the first woman horse trainer in the world, like in the time where women didn't wear pants, like literally, like there was a time in history when women didn't wear pants, and she was like, fuck you and fuck everyone, I'm gonna wear jeans and high heels, of course, because like tennis shoes weren't a thing. But she would train the horses in a skirt and high heels, and then eventually like, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, and then eventually she was like wearing jeans and high heels. But she had a super sparky spirit, like she was part Irish and she had red hair. And um but anyway, she one day just went, I'm done. And like literally sat down in the chair and started watching The Price is Right and soap operas. And she was done. And she started decaying and got sick and passed away.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. As we speak, the doctor Yara is trying
That's
to.
fine. Here, I'll stop it.